I've got a problem, and I suspect you have the same problem. I don't always live up to my own expectations. I often live down to my baser instincts. That idea is expressed 2,000 years ago by the Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 7. He said, what I want to do, I can't seem to do. What I don't want to do, well, I do that. What is my problem? What is your problem? This sin problem is what the Bible calls it. You might call it psychosis or weakness or sickness, whatever you call it. It's diagnosed as early in the Bible as Genesis chapter 3. And I want to simply lay out 3 big ideas that will help you overcome this one big problem. The story begins with Adam and Eve standing before a tree. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a serpent shows up, Satan, who is tempting Eve to take a bite. And he said to her, Eve, did God tell you you couldn't touch any of the trees of the garden? And he said, no, we can touch all of the trees of the garden. We just can't eat this fruit. And then she added, or touch it, lest we die. And Satan replies, you surely shall. Eve, don't be naive. You're not going to die. Now pause there for a minute. This is the first of 3 lessons for overcoming one of our basic human problems. When we're tempted, it's not with a bald-faced lie, it's with a half-truth. Did she die when she touched the fruit? No. Now, she set herself on a trajectory of death. That much is true. But there is a half-truth that will allow you to believe whatever you want to believe, to do whatever you want to do. And if we're going to overcome our problem, we need to look at the full truth and not half lies. The other little tidbit of this text is that Eve added to what God had said. God said, you surely shall die if you eat of it. But she added, if I touch it. And typically, when we're about to do what we know we shouldn't do, we come up with an excuse of why God's commands are too difficult to follow. So while Satan will tell us half-truths, we will tell ourselves that God's commands, his ways, are too difficult for anyone to follow. That's observation number 1. Observation number 2. Eve saw that it was good for food, delight to the eyes, and desirable to make one wise. Now you can put those sins or temptations into 3 categories: possession, pleasure, and pride. Possession, pleasure, pride. Fast forward, 1 John 2. The old apostle writes to his people that all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the boastful pride of life. Notice this is the same 3 categories: pleasure, possession, pride. Because that's all there is in the world. And when you're tempted, when I'm tempted, shoot, even when Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, it was pleasure, possession, pride. That's all there is to tempt you. Understanding that will help you diagnose, what am I really being driven toward? Now, we can make it very complex and talk about the difficulties of relationships and all the complexities of life to justify our behavior. But in reality, it's one of 3 things: your pleasure, your desire to possess, or your pride. Third observation, and this is by far the most important. What tempted Eve most was not the way the fruit looked. It was not that it was good for food. It was that it was desirable to make her wise. In essence, she wanted to be like God. That's my problem, and that's your problem. I want to be my own God. I want to determine the rules, and I want to determine my own destiny. Here's the problem. We are not God. And the moment we excommunicate God from the throne of our lives, we will wind up making tragic mistakes, living down to our baser instincts and not our highest aspirations. You want to live to your highest aspirations? You have to aim for something that is above you, not what is below you. And see, that's why, even if I were an atheist, and I realize most of you are Christians watching this, you believe the Bible, but even if you were an atheist, I would pretend like there's a God to put something above me so that I could live up to my aspirations and not down to my baser instincts.